Hello, and welcome to this Google Sketchup tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to be learning the very basics of how to use Google Sketchup, what it's good for, and at the end, we're going to be creating a basic house. So to get started, go ahead and navigate to sketchup.com as shown in the upper left-hand corner here. You'll be brought to the default SketchUp website. When you get here, go ahead and go to the upper right-hand corner and click Sign In. Now, it is important to note there are free and paid versions of Google SketchUp. We're just going to be using the free version. You will still need to create an account, however, to use Google SketchUp. I personally have used both my CMesh email as well as an external email address. They don't spam you with anything, so don't worry about that too much. Go ahead and sign in with your email address. Once you have created an account and signed in, you'll be able to see your credentials up here. The next thing I'd like you to do is go to the products. Here you can see SketchUp free, and then they also have information about their plans and pricing if you're interested in buying a more professional version, as the features inside of SketchUp free are a bit limited. Once you select on SketchUp free, you'll be brought to this page here. You'll want to select the Start Modeling. This is going to launch the application inside of your web browser. What's really great is SketchUp is a well-renowned tool. It has been around for quite a few years. It originally existed as only a desktop application that you would have to download and use, but more recently it has transitioned to the online cloud format, which is really nice because you'll be able to access your models anywhere that you have an internet connection, and the browser is actually powerful enough to run this software. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just press Start Modeling. This is going to load you into the SketchUp world. There'll be a character, sometimes a female, sometimes a male, just as the default to help you get your reference. To be able to pan around, go ahead and hold down the middle mouse button or the scroll wheel, and that will just allow you to rotate your camera around as such. Then go ahead and press delete on there just like that, and we'll get rid of that character. Now, if you've used other tools such as Unity or Blender or even Maya, for example, you are likely familiar with the 3D environment and how to navigate it. Essentially, we're looking into a 3D world in which we're going to start building our 3D objects inside of. For the basics of navigation, we already covered how to rotate with the middle mouse button. If you hold down Shift and the middle mouse button, so again Shift and middle mouse, that will allow you to pan around. So those two combinations, along with the ability to zoom in and out using the scroll wheel, will allow you to do most of your basic navigation. Okay, so now that we're looking at this, let's just talk about some of the core features here. We have two primary tool sets. One is over here on the left-hand side of the screen, another on the right-hand side of the screen. I like SketchUp's new format as it's very condensed and it's easy and intuitive to find things. We have things such as the basic selection, which is what we currently have. It's just the mouse cursor. We have the eraser, which we'll use a little bit more later, but this is going to allow you to erase geometry. We have the paint bucket, which is going to allow us to paint textures and stuff onto our houses and objects. We have pencil, which is going to allow us to draw lines, just like that. Then we have a little bit more advanced geometry functions here, such as different types of planes and arcs. This one we'll be using quite frequently, the rectangle tool. Then we have the push and pull, which is going to allow us to extrude and intrude geometry. There's a little bit more stuff here that you can play with. What's very nice is if you hover over each of these, they will give you a brief description of what these things are. I would encourage you to check out SketchUp's documentation, though it is very well written if you need more information about some of these certain tools. We're only going to cover a handful of them today in this video. Then we have the move and rulers, so this will allow you to move geometry around, this will allow you to measure geometry. You can walk around your scene in a first-person type setting, and then the ability to orbit around, which is the same as your middle mouse. Over here on the right-hand side of our screen, we have some more stuff that we'll be talking more specifically in the part 2 of this video. But this is going to show us things such as the outliner, which is similar to the hierarchy inside of Unity. This tab in particular we'll be playing a little bit more with. This is going to be our materials tab when we want to go to add textures onto our house and such. and a few other display properties and general settings, but we're not going to cover those too heavily in this. I'd rather just jump right into some exciting modeling. Okay, so a little bit of background about Google SketchUp. Google SketchUp is a 3D modeling tool. It's very good for developing precise geometry. So for example, if you were going to model out a house, model out a car, any of those type of things, this tool is very well versed for that. It allows for exact measurements, and you can sort of get the sense of the scale of the object as you're building it here. It's very popular among architects and just object designers in general, so if that's something you're a little bit more interested in, I would encourage you to take a in-depth look at SketchUp. It offers some advantages over other 3D modeling tools such as Blender and Maya. Um, as this one is a little bit more flexible in how it can be used, and is just a standard within the architectural community. Alright, well, enough backstory. Let's go ahead with our first object. So what we're going to do is start off here with the rectangle tool, which is this tool here. Go ahead and use the rectangle tool, and then go ahead and select anywhere in this 3D environment by clicking down, and then just moving your mouse like this. After you click, that's going to create a rectangle based on the size of it. Now, what's a really helpful tip is once you click, drag, and release to create this rectangle, you can actually enter in exact dimensions. If you look at the very lower right-hand corner of our screen down here, you see dimensions. It tells you exactly that this is 21 feet by 10 and an 1/8 inch by 39 feet, 2 and a 16th inch. We can actually type in different dimensions. So let's say we wanted to do 15, and then the feet symbol is a single apostrophe, so 15 feet, comma, 15 feet, and press enter. That's going to resize the last geometry that you manipulated. So we just manipulated that box. Now we entered some exact dimensions, and it's going to be a perfect square. Okay, so what I'd like to do is create a house now. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and use the push and pull tool, which is right below the rectangle tool here. Go ahead and make sure this first option is selected. And then you'll just be able to click anywhere on the face and drag up just like that. So now we have a standard cube that we're all familiar with, but we want to give some more detail to this cube. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to work on the roof. So I'd like a somewhat of a pointy roof, so I need to add additional geometry because I currently don't have any geometry to work with on the roof. So I'm going to select the pencil tool, and then we're going to use Google SketchUp's inferencing. Now the inferencing is a way that Google SketchUp essentially predicts what you are doing. So for example, when you are getting close to an edge, you're going to notice your mouse snap to the edge, and then it's going to stay on the edge pretty easily. Because if you're in that vicinity, Google SketchUp is like, well, you probably want to interact with this line in some way. It's going to highlight all of the essential things, such as it's going to tell you whether it's on the edge, as well as where the midpoint is. So I'd like you to take your pencil tool and go ahead and find the midpoint. If you find it, it's going to be a light blue color. Go ahead and click once, and then you'll just be able to drag anywhere along here. Once you get it perfectly across, you should be able to line up with the other midpoint just like that. Go ahead and click to confirm. And then if you accidentally create any additional geometry, do note that you can use the eraser tool. The eraser tool, you can try your best to click on that line there and it will delete it. I Control Z to bring that back. Okay, let's go ahead and use the Move tool now. So the Move tool is this axis looking icon down here, fourth from the bottom. We'll go ahead and just find the midpoint, which is pretty easy to find. It's that blue dot underneath my cursor icon. We'll go ahead and click on it. We'll press Alt, and we'll go ahead and move it up. Now sometimes that doesn't work right. Let's go ahead and just click on the midpoint. We'll try one more time. And we'll just do it just like that. Sometimes pressing Alt makes it a little bit easier. It adds additional geometry if you're working with a complex object. In this case, we don't need to press Alt. We can just go ahead and bring it up just like that. Alright, so if we want to get it perfectly straight up, we'll want to try and inference it. So I'm going to undo these changes here. Go ahead and find the midpoint again. And what we're going to do is, let me go ahead and make sure that I have this selected. Go ahead and select the midpoint, and then move it so that it says it is on the blue axis, just like that. That's going to make sure we're going directly up the z-axis, as you saw. So that'll make sure that our house is perfectly symmetrical on both sides. Let's add a little bit of an awning to this. One of the ways we can do that really easily is by using a subset of the push-pull tool, which is this third option here, the offset go tool. Let's go ahead and select this option here right below the rectangle and select offset. Go to the very bottom, so rotate your house such that you can see the bottom of it. And then we're going to click anywhere inside here, drag with your mouse, so click and drag, and then just get it somewhere near the edge like that. What this is doing is it's creating a perfectly symmetrical offset of whatever shape you are currently selecting. So we had a square, so it's essentially creating a square in a square. The reason why we're doing that is because I want to create a simple type of awning, and I'm going to use the push-pull tool here by reselecting, and I'm going to make sure to zoom in just to grab this in particular, and then I'm just going to go ahead and bring it up. That was a little bit far, so let's do it one more time by pressing Ctrl Z. And I think that looks really nice. So we just have a little overhang on this house now. Alright, so the next thing that we need to do is let's go ahead and use the offset one more time, because I'd like to actually create an offset for this triangle. So let's just go ahead and make that something like that. Perfect. And then we can go ahead and use the push-pull tool just to bring this in very slightly. Might be a bit too much, just to give it a little bit more, or we could actually bring it out. I think I want it in just a little bit. And we'll use the offset tool one more time to add just a little bit more to this. Perfect. And then we'll go ahead and use the push-pull tool to push that in very slightly. Now, like we did when we typed in the dimensions to make that perfect square, we did 15 feet, comma, 15 feet after we moved it. We can do that on any operation. So for example, if I wanted to type this in 6 inches, sorry, I did 6 feet there by accident, that's going to bring it in 6 feet, just like that. So I'd have to do that operation one more time, and then be able to type in 6, looks like it's going to default to inches there. Bring that in just like that. Alright, so make sure to use the double quotes, excuse me, I was typing 2 single apostrophes. I forgot that I have to make that distinction. So go ahead, I'm going to Control Z that, and I want to push it in, so I'm going to make that a negative number. So let me get back to where I started, push in just a little bit, and then we'll do -6 double quotation. Actually, since we did the in operation, we don't want to inverse that, so if we go ahead and bring that in and type 6 inches, there we go, that's what we were looking for. I think that was a good opportunity to kind of review what this is doing, so I'm going to leave that in. But essentially, after we created the offset, came in, what I originally did was I typed in -6 inches because I want it conceptually to go in 6 inches, but that's going to do the reverse of the operation that you just did. So you did a push in, it's going to do a pull out. We wanted to keep it going in the direction that it was originally going, so that's why we did these 6 inches. Okay, so that's looking very good now. We could get this perfectly symmetrical on both sides if we wanted to, but just for the sake of this demonstration, we will not. Alright, if we wanted to add a door onto this, how could we do that? Well, we could use the rectangle tool again. And what we could do is we could just find wherever the midpoint of this is. So there's that blue circle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, and once I click once, I'm going to go ahead and press Alt, and I'm going to just bring this up a little bit. Something like that. I think I want it off, just a little bit off the center. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create an offset. So let's go ahead and use the push-pull tool offset on the left-hand side of our screen one more time. And if you notice, if we do the offset on this, we're going to kind of have an unfortunate thing happen. It's going to actually extend beyond the bounds of that, which is not something that we want it to do. Rather, what we want to be able to do is just have it based on these lines. So if we hold down Shift, and click these lines, we just want to select the door frame, essentially. We don't want to make sure to get this thing here. Alright, let's go ahead and go back to our offset tool now, and we can now create an offset just based on that. So what I'd like to do is just kind of give it a door frame type of appearance, and then I'm going to use the push-pull tool to go ahead and bring that out ever so slightly. And Maybe we want a window on the house too, so we'll go back to our rectangle tool and we'll just make a very simple window right there. Now this one we could actually use the offset tool with no problem to create a frame and maybe an inner frame like that. And then use the push-pull tool respectively to bring this out, and kind of bring that in just a little bit. Perfect. If you wanted to make a hollow house, this is kind of a solid indoor house. One of the ways you can get through that and have thick walls at the same time is what I like to do is when I start off with a rectangle like this, we'll go ahead and just create a very quick house here. Then what we're going to do is go ahead and use the offset tool. So we'll go ahead and create an offset just like that. And then we're going to use the pull tool to go ahead and bring that back up. We want to make sure to get this face specifically. So we'll select on that, and then we can bring that up just like that. So now you can see we have thicker walls that we can interact with. We actually have an indoor side now, and we can continue doing what we were doing before, creating a door just like that. And then to be able to actually cut a hole into the thing, we can use the push-pull tool. Now this is a little tricky to do, so hopefully I can get it here on the first shot, but you're going to click on this and bring it in until it kind of turns blue, and then it will disappear. It may take you a few tries to do that, but again what you're going to do is after you create your geometry, so if I had like a window right here for some reason, go ahead and use the push-pull tool. Oops, Control-Z that. On this one, wait till it turns blue. You'll be able to kind of see what it looks like. There we go. Kind of turns those polka dots with the blue, and then it will be able to cut it out just like that. And then we can come in here and we can start modeling stuff. So if we wanted to make a chair, we could start with the chair, maybe starting with the legs here, something like that. And then we could go ahead and bring that up, and then we could continue building the chair from the ground up here, maybe putting something along this side. I think we'll have to get another leg up here before we actually add another face. So what we'll do is we'll just create one more box over here. Now remember, you can be typing in dimensions. So like if I wanted to select this particular one here, I could do like 30 inches. That is a little high, so maybe like 20 inches is about the same height. And you do that for both of these here. So if I wanted to go, well, I already did it, so I'd have to, let's try 20 inches. That's going to be a little bit taller than that other one, I think. This one I'm just going to have to eyeball to get that roughly to the same place. Again, if I was actually doing this a little bit more correctly rather than just showing off the features, you'd be typing in dimensions as you go. Okay. So now what we'll do is I'm going to go ahead and create this just like that, and you can actually connect these different faces. That's not going to look too beautiful at all. I think we'll have to make the full chair before we go ahead and do that. But what you can do is you can create, what I'd like to show is you can connect geometry per se. So like for example, if we wanted to put a roof on this thing, we could start with our rectangle tool here, and what we're going to do is not have it along that axis. I'm going to go ahead and bring it this way and select it directly on that one. So I connected it from this corner to this corner. SketchUp is, whenever it finds 3 points or more to connect, it's going to build a face, because that's just the nature of the 3D geometry. When you have 3 or more points, we can go ahead and create a triangle or a rectangle, etc. And then we could go ahead and continue modeling that, but now we have a nice indoor scene. And what's going to be really exciting about this is going to be able to come into Unity, so you can model your different types of houses and all of that stuff, and we'll be able to export that directly to Unity. The last thing I wanted to show you in this video, as it's really just supposed to be getting your feet wet with Google Sketchup, is how to apply materials. So unfortunately there's a limited amount of materials that you can use. There are a few colors here, but if you select the search icon, there are an array of different ones here. So for example, if we wanted to select wood, we could choose one of these woods here, and then go ahead and paint our house with that wood color. And maybe let's put some roofing on there. So we can apply our roofing just like that, and continue to do that all the way around. Now again, the free version of SketchUp is limited in what you can do. I do not believe, to the best of my knowledge, that you can currently import your own textures to use, but there is a good variety here. Um, In the next video, the part 2 of this, we'll be taking the house that we built inside of Google Sketchup, and we'll go ahead and import it into Unity with colliders and all of that good stuff, so your first-person character will be able to walk around inside of the house that you created. If you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to reach out or leave a comment in the comment section below. Thank you very much.